UAP Report with Marty Garza. You are listening to Brothers of the Serpent podcast.
No alien activity here, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, angels and demons and monsters and serpents. This is Brothers of the Serpent podcast, and we are coming to you not live from the 10 by 10 by 10 tangent cube of science, where we are nestled amongst the dusty bones of an ancient seabed high atop the Edwards Plateau. So we don't normally do current events on this podcast. I mean, like I said, it isn't live. Often we record it and it isn't released for a couple of days. So, you know, current events just, and we also are usually talking about more timeless things. Current events just isn't one of the topics we cover, but one of the topics we do cover,
politics.
Politics is the subject of UFOs, aliens, and stuff like that. And right now there's interesting things happening. So Marty, despite the fact that he is actually on the road, he's on vacation right now, agreed to come on. He's going to join us at least for the beginning of the show, and we're going to discuss some of the stuff that's happening in the news right now. Now, this is being recorded on Monday, on the 13th. It won't be released for a couple of days, so this story is changing by the hour sometimes. So it possibly may be very different by the time the episode comes out, but that's fine. We're going to give you our take right now. So thanks for joining us, Marty. Really appreciate it, buddy.
Glad to be here. Yeah, I'm doing my version of a roadsode.
Yeah.
Coming to you, not live from Las Vegas.
There you go.
Hot takes from Las Vegas.
In Vegas. When are you going to take us to Vegas? What's the deal? I mean, come on.
You're going to have to meet. Wait, we had a good time. When we
well, yeah, we did. Yeah.
Remember that?
I do.
Yeah. Yeah, Marty, we have partied with Marty in Vegas before, and it was so awesome. We definitely need to do it again. But yeah, so the reason, what we're going to be talking about is all these objects that have been seen and shot down. So I'm just going to give a brief timeline here. Now, the first one was this balloon. Now, everyone was calling it a balloon. There's photos of it, so it was clearly a balloon. But on the 28th of January, this balloon entered Alaskan airspace, and then on the 4th of February, it was shot down over the Atlantic. So it basically crossed the entire, United States from west to east. It was around 60,000 feet. It was shot down. An F-22 fighter shot it down with a Sidewinder missile. And then that generated a lot of talk, obviously. Now, no one thought that was a alien object. It was a balloon. There was a bunch of questions about what it was for and whose it was, but
totally not for spying.
Totally.
Totally.
But on Thursday night, which would have been February 9th, an object was detected again in Alaska, and this one was headed northward. They're saying it was headed towards the North Pole. It was shot down on the 10th over the waters of Alaska. So it broke into pieces, and at least the DOD said that it was not a balloon, and it was the size of a small car. And then, let's see, on the 11th, another one is shot down over Canada. This one was reported as being cylindrical. It was picked up on radar on Friday. So it was picked up on the 10th, shot down on the 11th. And then again, on the 12th, something is shot down over Lake Huron. So this one was detected over Montana on the 11th, on Saturday, I think, right? Yes. So it was detected on the 11th, and it was shot down on the 12th. And this one was flying at 20,000 feet and was octagonal in shape. And some reports said it had strings hanging off of it, but no discernible payload. So all of these things are, it's strange. Like, we get this one, and it's clearly a balloon. There's photos of it. Of course, it crossed the entire country, but now there's 3 more that have been shot down. And there's been a bunch of strange reports. Now, officials, national security people have said this is not aliens, but we don't know what it is. And as of right now, as of recording, they haven't picked up any debris either. So it isn't really clear what's going on, but it is interesting in light of all the other stuff happening. And then, so we have Marty on to talk about it. Now we're going to go full conspiracy here, folks. That's what we're here for. Right?
That's right.
So give us your wildest conspiracy
Lay
theory.
it on me, buddy.
Well, likewise, I generally don't talk about current events related to the UFO phenomenon very much either.
Yeah.
My background is more in the historical, historical data rather than current events. Modern day stuff gets fuzzy because, our level of current technology is not really well defined. We don't really know what state of the art truly is. So we have to just kind of speculate as to what type of capabilities we may or may not have. And this obviously did garner a lot of attention, but I don't know how much of that is being driven by the media and how much of it is an outcry, public outcry.
Yeah.
But I have my suspicions about how this is being handled. This could potentially, there are many different scenarios that might be playing out, but I have two working models, and it just depends on how fringe you want to go.
Yeah. All the way fringe. All the way.
Right. Well, let me ease into this.
Okay.
The most pragmatic version of the conspiracy theory would be that due to the kind of delay in reacting to the initial balloon sighting or them detecting it over I believe it was over Montana initially near Maelstrom. It took several days before they finally shot it down over the Atlantic.
Yep.
During that period, there was a lot of back and forth of why are we not taking this thing down?
Yeah.
There was a lot of backpedaling in Washington. And when the second one, and obviously in that case, it was definitively a balloon that had an obvious sensor package underneath it. Who that belonged to, we take it on their word that this was a Chinese, we don't know that. We only know what they're telling us, right?
Well,
which may or may not be true.
Supposedly China did say it was theirs, but they said it was just a...
Well, our media is reporting that China says it was.
Right, I know. That's what I'm saying. Yeah, supposedly they said it, but that's another thing being reported to us. But they were saying it was a benign... Right. It wasn't a spy package. It was just a weather... your atmospheric package or whatever, So it's another nope, it's a weather balloon, which is funny.
Right. So when the second balloon was detected and I guess eventually shot down, my suspicion was that this was
well, hold on.
An effort.
You can't say it was a balloon because they're not saying that it was.
Well, okay.
Yeah.
The second incident.
Yeah.
Right. The second incident.
Yeah.
My impression was that this was some attempt to save face over the delay in reacting to the first one.
Yeah.
Like, oh, look, we're on top of this, right?
Right.
We're going to take this thing. Anything enters our airspace, we're taking it down. That scenario, go in with both guns blazing.
Yeah.
That was further complicated as more incidents started occurring. Now, let me back up a little bit and throw in a little bit of this potentially fringe stuff that may or may not be accurate. But while the initial incident was going on, when the object was being detected, it had not yet been shot down. During that intervening period, there was a report from a local news affiliate in Montana. There was an interview with a lady that caught footage of what she alleges was a shot.
Yes,
I remember that.
I saw that. Yeah,
right.
Something
she
coming, smoking out of the sky. Yeah,
right. But oddly, she claimed that she heard jets 2 days prior to that, she had heard jets. This was the third day that she had heard the jets. And that's what she said, oh, they're back. So that's what caused her to get up and look out her window. So that makes you wonder, well, what was going on that they had? She said that was unusual, right?
Yeah.
So what was causing, it could just be a complete coincidence, right? But she said it was unusual activity. And that is what caused her to attempt to catch this. And she said while she was looking, she visibly saw, she did not hear it. She saw an explosion and saw debris falling. Now, she caught footage of it, and you see an object descending, and it looks like a pretty steep angle. So I mean, it looks like an aircraft, contrail or something. But I don't know that that's necessarily what we're seeing. But I think that was a little bit after what she claimed was the explosion.
Yep.
Because she said it reminded her a lot of the Challenger. She said there was debris falling. We're taking her word for it. I've been, as much as I don't want to, I've been kind of following it. And I have been traveling in the middle of all of this. But there are a few other people from that area that claim that they saw it too.
Yeah.
Whether that's true or not, who knows? We don't know if any of this.
Right. Yeah. It's all developing. Yeah.
But I will throw this into the mix. In June of 2021, and I posted this in the Discord. In June of 2021, someone posted a TikTok video of an object falling from the sky. And I don't remember the exact location. It was in Texas. It was in northern Texas. And you see, and they're like in their vehicle filming, and they're like, look. And it is very clear this is not CGI or anything. You can see what's clearly like a smoke, and you can see a structured object falling. And there are people in the street watching this on the footage, and they're getting out of their vehicle and everything. And then shortly after that, there's military jets circling the area. None of that made any media at all. Clearly something happened there. This footage is indisputable. So the ability for certain events to be scrubbed from national coverage, I'd say that this is an example of how that can be done. There are a lot of people that are adamant that, everybody has cell phone cameras and nothing can, anything that happens is immediately all over the internet. I don't know that that's necessarily true.
Watcher says it was from El Paso. Does that sound right?
Could be. I don't remember exactly. I know it was June of 2021.
Well, the other thing we know,
post that footage.
The other thing we know is that the social media companies can definitely suppress stories from being shared.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's like if it was starting to go viral, like the video was getting spread around, they could just put a stop to it.
Yeah. I mean, and I'm sure, they
Especially
could say, there was national security implications or something. I mean, and there may, I'm not trying to blame anybody for anything. There may be very legitimate reasons for doing things like this, right? I mean, not everything needs to be public. And I know there may be counter arguments to that, but I think there are plenty of cases where there are legitimate, security concerns and some things the public doesn't need to know about, right? Sometimes it's like, making sausage. Sometimes running a government, you don't need to see what goes on behind the scenes to make it work.
Yeah. So, but back to what's happening now. Do you think that so you gave us the non-fringe. Now what's your really fringe theory?
Okay. Well, that scenario was complicated when then Trudeau allegedly detected an object that he asked the United States to shoot down.
Okay, yeah.
Again,
so you were initially thinking like the second one was a response, like to the first one. You're like, okay, now they're shooting it down quickly. But then there's a third
some of
object.
Some of this can be. It's sort of like UFO flaps. This is like now we're turning it around on them, right?
Yeah.
Whenever there's a UFO sighting and it gets media coverage, all of a sudden there's all these reports because everybody's looking up and everything they see, oh, that's a UFO.
Yeah.
Right. So now we're getting that scenario turned around on the government. Now everything the government sees is, so I don't know how much of that is truly happening, but let me ease into a little more aggressive version of this, right? Some of this could be potentially purposeful.
Yeah.
To overload the information channels with noise, what will ultimately turn out to be noise, and it induces a certain level of fatigue on the public consciousness, just as the UAP momentum is being gained in Congress and all this. If all of a sudden you have, oh, that was just a balloon. Oh, that was just a Chinese thing. Oh, in other words, eventually people go, yeah, we heard about that. Yeah, there's hearings. Oh, yeah, but they already figured that out, right? They quit paying attention because they got overloaded with all this junk, right? All this noise. So that's another potential thing that could be. The other, and then a byproduct of that exact thing could be, is this a way to grab more funding for, we need better sensors, we need better equipment, or as if they don't already have state-of-the-art equipment to do this, right?
So I did see a couple of reports, but people were saying that that they've changed the way that their sensors are working to pick up different objects, and maybe that's why they're picking up these things suddenly, which is like, that's interesting because you're like, okay, so wait, so maybe this has been happening all along and you just never noticed because you've got your radars tuned to stuff that you expect, which seems dumb, right?
Well, let me remind you of something we discussed in the Patreon episode a couple weeks ago. We started talking about this when we got into our conversation on fusion. I started bringing up Quartz Q, this top secret aircraft that was allegedly prototypes were built, but it got canceled and all this. And this was what I alleged to be this nuclear powered airship, right?
Yeah.
That could loiter indefinitely.
Yeah.
And in our discussion, I mentioned that part of the beauty of that solution was that radar systems are not designed to detect things that aren't in motion.
Right.
It's harder to detect, or generally the filters built into the systems are looking for things moving above a certain speed, right? They don't want to be, because keep in mind, and this is factors into what's happening right now, is that, like, for example, the radar cross-section of like an F-117 is like, I think like something like a sparrow, the size of a sparrow, maybe smaller. So the radar systems, since the 90s, let's say, since the early 90s, as stealth technology actually got put in the field, right? It existed before that, but it had never been fielded. It's all testing. But once it was fielded, everybody had to step up their sensors, right? And then the United States is aware that other countries are working towards it. I don't know that any other country truly has stealth capabilities anywhere near even what the F-22 is, much less the sixth generation fighter. But keep in mind, the radar cross sections of these things, like, so I think the B-2, the radar cross section is equated like to the size of a bumblebee or something. So these
you're
sensors,
saying that they don't want to see birds or bees in their radar.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
They're not entirely looking for things of a certain size. One of the filters that's built in, and I don't want to give the impression that I'm an expert on this by any means.
Yeah.
This is just the stuff I pick up in while looking for other more unusual things, right? But one of the filters that are built into these systems is how fast they're moving.
Yeah.
Helicopters and things don't move real fast, but they move faster than a bird, and they don't want to be detecting birds and things. So if theoretically the radar cross section of an aircraft could be smaller than a bird, their kind of default commenting on that, well, it moves faster than a bird. That's what we're looking for.
Right.
The combination of speed and size. So balloons kind of might have been good. Yeah, if you don't have great stealth capability, that's maybe a good avenue to take. Maybe definitely not as expensive.
Right. So
send these things that are slow moving, not easily detectable.
Yeah.
Nobody's looking for them.
So since the radar systems are designed to filter out things that are moving slower than known aircraft, but have tiny cross sections, then somebody might think, well, we can the systems might be blind to balloons, basically, or very slow moving objects. So, but
also keep in mind that if I could think of that,
yeah,
the boys at DARPA, they figured that out decades ago. This is nothing new.
Yeah,
I don't. We're coming up with potential scenarios here. Just us talking off, shooting from the hip. These people are highly paid specialists, the best in the world, trying to think of potential threats that are 30 to 50 years down the road. In other words, anything that we come up with in our conversation, they thought of a long time ago. So these things are not if they're doing this, it's not a surprise to anybody. They may pretend that it's a surprise. I don't think that's the case.
Yeah,
I think sometimes the ineptitude that people sometimes believe they see is some of it is, you don't worry about the dumb guy, right? It's they're more sophisticated and more advanced than probably we could ever. Our wildest dreams are probably not to the level that they're probably at.
Yeah. Well, I mean, okay. They could be playing dumb when they're not. I agree. But I also wouldn't totally discount institutional stupidity in some cases. Like it does happen. I mean, with these,
I think a lot of times that tends to be more like lack of communication, not having well-established communication channels between agencies. NORAD probably has, well, not probably. They most definitely have the best systems in the world.
Yeah.
And then you combine that with the subsystems of all the other potential space-based, ground-based, and all these other things. Even our conventional air traffic controllers have the ability to detect most things like this.
Yeah.
Whereas they don't. We live in a different world now. I mean, the idea of somebody sending up a drone they bought at Walmart now, that can be a potential hazard. So they're looking for things that are no one ever even considered 10 years ago. So
yeah, you said potential hazard. I do want to mention that another interesting contrast from the original actual confirmed balloon and what happened with the three objects later was that they were, over the lake, they closed airspace for a little while, at least for a few hours. They also said that these were navigational hazards to civilian aircraft. And it just makes you wonder because, again, you're saying like, well, what about this other thing? Now it was at 60,000 feet, which puts it way above the ceiling of most civilian aircraft. So maybe they didn't consider that to be hazardous.
So let's look at that. So they detect this object, whatever it is, and they say it's not an alien craft, but it's a potential hazard.
Yeah.
Why? And look at what they did. They shut down the airspace, and they end up going. And I guessing I believe a Sidewinder missile is like, I think something like a $450,000 missile to shoot down a $300 balloon. I don't. But why? When, for example, when the War Zone reported on the cubes within a sphere that many pilots on the East Coast were supposedly reporting, and the pilots were actually concerned about collisions with these things. Why didn't we get the same reaction?
Yeah.
In other words, did they know what those were and they didn't know what these are? In other words, we're not getting the same reaction. So there's something to be learned from that. In other words, I'm skeptical. I'm sure we're not hearing the full story of what's going on.
No, I'm sure. Yeah. And it's also, I mean, what do you think of the possibility this whole thing is a big setup? Like, I mean, you kind of implied that a little bit, like it's putting noise into the channel.
Yeah, and let me add a little bit to that. Another perspective to this that may be going on as well. And I know I've mentioned this at some point over the multiple UFO episodes we've done. I'm pretty sure I've said this before, that I'm very hesitant to hang the credibility of the entire, if it has the credibility of the entire ufological field on any one incident or anything.
Yeah.
In other words, for example, how often do I bring up the Tic Tac? The Nimitz encounter. Yeah. Right. As interesting as it is, I'm not about to hang my reputation, if I have one, on that, because it could very easily be technology. It could be art, secret technology. So the last thing I want is for everybody to put all their chips on black over here.
Yeah.
And we're all in. We're all betting that
this is in Vegas.
And all of a sudden you go, okay, here it is. Here it is. This is our, this ace that we've been holding in our back pocket for the last 20 years. And yes, we have this new technology. We had reasons to keep it secret. And all of a sudden you see there are new UFOs.
Right. Yeah.
So in one failed shot, they took all of UFO research for the past 70 years gets taken down in one shot.
Yeah.
Because everybody went all in on one event. Right. So I just don't. That's why I focus on the historical stuff and the broad overview, it's the patterns, not any one thing. So I don't know what to tell you, but I'm in a sit and hold position right now.
Yeah. I agree. This is, like I said, when we were starting this segment, the story is developing. I don't think that this is aliens or even anything necessarily paranormal, but it is interesting, right? It is interesting. And I do think clearly people are associating it with this. It looks to me like most of the actual UFO people, the ufological community, is like, these are not actual UFOs. I mean, there has been some questions on one of them because people were saying that the pilot said that he had sensor issues when he got near it, but that just, I don't know, you just don't know what's really going on. These are reports where people were saying, well, this was reported by somebody else who reported it. And you're just like, okay, well, we don't actually know.
Right. But if this is a psyop, of course they're going to use all the key words.
Right. Yeah, they're going to use the key.
Oh, yeah, this was anomalous. It exhibited anomalous behavior or whatever. They want you to buy in. Yeah. They want you to put your chips on that, that black, Yeah. So, of course, they're going to lead you down that path before they pull it out from under you. Yeah.
So what would be the purpose? To just continue to hide the fact that there is something going on?
To try to maybe diminish some of the pressure that they might be getting from Congress as a result of the few senators that have been pushing for more hearings. And I'm telling you, I heard a lot, even just this past week, I heard a lot more about this Lockheed connection and the crash retrieval stuff. And I think that we're going to hear about that. And maybe this is a way to defuse some of that.
Defuse some things.
Introduce fatigue into this.
That reminds me, didn't you say something like that? Like there's going to be some kind of release or something coming up?
Information about materials recovered?
I speculated. I'm speculating. I'm not saying this definitively. I'm just reporting that there has been a lot of chatter from people that you would think are in the know. And there's been considerable discussion. And again, Lockheed, there was more discussions about things that happened in the 70s when Lockheed was actually maybe not in a great financial position. And this was under the Nixon administration. and some things that might have potentially occurred during that period, and how they may have ended up with some anomalous material that they've had
to help them out.
And some people claim to have actually physically seen. Again, we don't want this to be, the Lucy's football, but it's being repeated quite a bit. And some of the people that are saying this, it sounds like they're using this as a strategy for these congressional hearings.
It would just be interesting if your prediction came true, but it was them releasing information about strange materials recovered from these things that they shot down.
Yeah, I don't.
That'd be cool.
I don't know that would be the case.
Yeah.
These materials, there's some in private hands. I'm telling you that there's been magnesium that's been tested that has a high degree of purity, and these are things that have been around for quite a long time.
Yeah.
They're definitely not the smoking gun by any means, but they're very interesting. They're anomalous. They're, again, like, I've heard Dr. Gary Nolan discuss them, and he says, could we produce these? Yes. Would we? It would be expensive.
Yeah.
And it would have been far more expensive at the time
they were recovered,
when this material was recovered.
Yeah.
Right. So, we don't know. And again, I'm hesitant to put too many chips on any one, position on the board, but it's that broad overview of, you keep hearing these things, and maybe there's enough pressure coming from different sides that you will actually get some revelations. It's hard to say.
Yeah. Well, the watcher mentioned the possibility that if these objects were transmitting anything, it may interfere with sensors of the planes that went after them. And that's true, but the other thing that was in the reports was that they didn't detect any kind of transmissions from these objects. At least that's what I've seen, that none of them seemed to be in communication in any way. So who knows?
The ability to interfere with electronics on aircraft is far from a new technology.
Right.
Now, if we're talking interfering with being, ability to lock onto the object or something on something like an F-22, then that's a little bit more concerning. But God, there have been those type of reports going literally back to almost to World War II.
Yeah.
These are not anything new. But take incidents like the Tehran Iran incident from 1980.
Yep.
Yeah. The pilot was trying to intercept this object every time he'd come in and try to get a weapons lock on it. All is not only could he not lock on it, all his panel would go out.
Yeah, his board
he'd
would
lose
go black.
Complete control of the aircraft.
That's right.
And that happened multiple times. And we've heard many reports like that. Now, are these military? I mean, you would think that would be a weapon system or a defense system that would be of great value to anybody that could crack such a capability. Effectively, the people that believe that the Foo Fighters during World War II, that they were some type of advanced Nazi weapon system. The idea, and I'm not necessarily talking like anti-gravity crap. I'm talking about systems that could be sent up almost like balloons, right? Almost like
that would mess
during
with
World War II.
Yeah.
And I do this a lot. I read some comments about this, about people think that I can't stay on topic because I backtrack a lot. And keep in mind, I do this for the benefit of the listeners. I'm not we know what we're talking about. I want the listeners to understand. I don't want to say things that I'm talking past them and they have no idea what I'm talking about. So during World War II, as actually even in World War I, to defend the cities, what a lot of in Germany, they would use balloons. They would send balloons up that actually had explosives tied to them. And the idea was that aircraft that would come in, like bombers, would tangle with the cables that held the balloons, and it would pull the bomb down to it, blow the aircraft right?
Yeah.
This is like basic defense. So there are theories that the Kugelblitz and the Führerball, which were the allegedly Nazi, UFOs during World War II, that they were to function somewhat along those lines. Only they used proximity switches. Some researchers theorized that they could send these things up, and they would just go up. They weren't flying around chasing aircraft, but the idea that they would go up and they had proximity switches because the company that would develop some of the components for these things did develop the proximity switch. So there is some factual information, whether they had this capability or as much capability as they claim, we don't know, but there is some data to back this up. But the idea was these things could go up and act as proximity switches that when the aircraft would get close, they would explode, right? And they were like aerial landmines. And that they also had the ability to interfere with the electrical systems that would actually, at those times you're talking ignition systems.
Yeah.
There were airplanes, there weren't jets. So they actually could take out the electrical system or the ignition system of the bombers to take them out. So these are like legitimate avenues of development for defense. It's not a stretch, right? So I know that was kind of, I got off on a rant there, but the idea of having some aeroforms that have the ability to interfere with the electronics of aircraft that might be sent up to check them out is not anything unusual.
Right. Okay. Well, let's take a break.
Yeah. And we are back, ladies and gentlemen. I have a theory. My theory is the aliens took the weather balloon scenario to their advantage and then just started flying all kinds of stuff around everywhere. And basically they're trying to make the government look like they're trying to cover it up because the aliens also know that Congress is looking into them. That's what's going on, bro.
That could be what's going on.
It's
the aliens are like, let's really mess with them and put a bunch of weather balloons over.
It's a reverse troll.
Yeah. They are actually alien
tricksters.
weather balloons.
Yeah. Well, the first one was not them, but they were like, hey, guys, guess what? We can take advantage of this situation. Yeah. Let's send out all these old drones that we don't need, and they'll get shot down. Yeah.
Well,
Marty, what do you think? You're grinning. You know I'm right. Look at him. He's just like, damn, he scooped me.
Well, I guess we're gonna move on to we're gonna turn the conspiracy knob all the way up to 11.
Okay, good.
And I'm gonna bring up an interview that Nick Redfern did with George Knapp on Coast to Coast on October 17th, 2010. This was shortly after the release of Final Events, the book that focuses on the Collins Elite, which you've heard me discuss, listeners have heard me discuss this. These are the Christian fundamentalists within the government that have been obstructing UFO research and paranormal research. Well, in this interview 13 years ago, Nick Redfern talks about a conversation that he had with a member. He interviewed several members he alleges to have interviewed several members of the Collins Elite. And if you remember, Ray Boucher also met with a couple of members. But I think I believe the individual's name was Robert Manners, or he refers to him as Robert Manners, relayed a story to him about discussions that were taking place at the Department of Defense back at that time. And he claimed that one of the proposals that they had was to, he refers to it as to enact, he calls it the worst parts of the Patriot Act, and to create some form of scenario where the country would go on lockdown. And during this time, they would use or begin an indoctrination program to get people to believe that there were aliens from another planet visiting Earth. Now, keep in mind, this was according to this, in this scenario, was a deception to draw attention away from the fact that what was really happening was some type of a demonic presence on Earth, right? And there was debate within this because Manners did not like the idea that they were using a deception to disguise a different deception, right? But it's interesting in hindsight to look that in December of 2017, we have the New York Times article, and a year later we have a COVID shutdown. And then we start getting all these reports and start having these congressional hearings. And now we have it. Like, it almost seems like that scenario is exactly what's playing out. And it's hard, keep in mind in 2010, the idea that they're going to lock down the country, like, talk about a fringe idea. Yeah. And yet it happened. So I'm not saying I believe that, but again, the pieces are there. I can see how people might connect those dots.
Yeah. And it wasn't just the country, it was the world. So, I mean.
When was that project? I can't remember. Was it like 211 or something like that, where they were basically running pandemic scenarios to try to see, like, how would we deal with this? You know what I'm talking about? No? Don't remember this?
I'm not too familiar with that.
Okay.
I know they have, I know they've gamed out scenarios. But,
it was basically like people getting together like, well, how would we handle, a pandemic or something? And so they ran these various scenarios. So, I mean, it's possible that they were doing that before 2010. And there were, in other words, the information was there available that some were suggesting to shut down the economy. I'm just saying.
And keep in mind,
those ideas could have come from
when Nick Redfern started talking about the Collins elite and released this book. The idea was, again, the whole idea that there was this cabal, that's the term they use, within the government of fundamentalist Christians. That was a fringe idea. Yet subsequently, we've had confirmation of that from a variety of people. We come to find out from Russell Targ, from various people involved in, Hal Puthoff,
talking about Agenda 21?
People that were involved in the remote viewing programs, Stargate program for the DIA, that program was shut down as a result of these fundamentalist Christians. They don't use the name Collins Elite. Collins Elite is a pseudonym for the organ. We don't really know what the organization is called.
Yeah.
But we've received confirmation from them. We've heard from Lou Elizondo and then from Colin Colliher, George Knapp, and all these other people that were connected with the BASS and OSAP programs, and ATIP. And then just this week, there was an interview with he's referred to as Axelrod. He was someone also involved in it, and he confirmed the having dealt with or at least receiving some information from this organization. Although he downplayed it a little bit, which is interesting because the other people say they were responsible for shutting the program down. He doesn't quite go that far, but in other words, it appears that this has been corroborated, that this group does exist. Now, whether, there's more to the story, whether there is any validity to the story that, yes, they know what this is all about and that they've been killing these programs because they don't believe that anybody should be messing with this, whatever is behind the phenomenon. That's a completely different argument. But that the fact that they exist, I think there's enough confirmation out there to establish that as a fact.
And we went over this with you a bit on the show, and I thought maybe I got this wrong, but I thought you were sort of saying that these people weren't necessarily fundamentalists, that this is they came to these conclusions. Yeah,
I mean, I've made throughout a few of the episodes, I've tried to defend their position a little bit, I guess. And I think, and this is, I don't want to get off on a tangent that's probably best for a completely different episode.
Yeah.
It's not really relevant to what we're discussing here, but the idea that whatever is behind the phenomenon is demonic, people conflate that with Christianity, and that is not the concept of evil spirits and demons predates Christianity by 3,000 years or more. In other words, it goes back as far as we have written records for. And if the Epic of Gilgamesh is the oldest written story, arguably the oldest written story known to man, Gilgamesh was a Gibberum. He was the offspring of the fallen angels in the oldest story we have. So we don't even know how far back the concept of evil spirits goes, or demonic spirits. It's not a Christian idea by any means. So
the fallen angels are aliens, bro. Come on.
Well, that's just it. It's a label. It's all labels. In other words, whether these things are some type of a malevolent intelligence, you can call it whatever. I mean, it doesn't matter. It'd be like use a sporting team name. It doesn't matter. It's just
the gods versus the demons.
Yeah, whatever. Yeah. So, again, that's a bit of a tangent for probably one best for another day.
Yeah, maybe. Well, okay. So the other thing that happened is so all this is going on with these sightings and everything, and you had one yourself.
Yeah, it turns out, here we're hearing about all these balloons and, these things that I'm skirping as I'm driving down the road and saying, yeah, whatever. They're just trying to deceive us into these things. And then, like most things related to the phenomenon, it always loves to throw you a curveball.
Yeah.
So just yesterday, we're on our way to Vegas and we're driving. What was it? I'm trying to remember the name. This is about 100 miles north of the Trinity site, Trinity test site, first nuclear explosion, right?
And maybe one of the first recovered objects too, right?
Yeah, first UFO. Well, no, actually not the first, but there was an alleged UFO crash.
One of the early, crashes and recovery.
So, this was at roughly 4:15 in the afternoon. We're driving along, and my wife had been watching something for a couple of minutes, and she finally brought it to my attention. She thought it was a helicopter initially, and finally she goes, "What is that?" So I look over thinking it's going to be some mundane thing, and I look over and I see this dark object in the sky. And it kind of did look like a helicopter. I go, I think it's a helicopter. It's coming at us, because she says it hasn't moved, and I said, well, it's because it's coming towards us. And I kept looking, and then I noticed it started glinting, like reflecting sunlight, bright. And it started looking a little more anomalous. So I said, all right. So I pulled over and got out of the car. And I get out and I'm looking at this thing. And first it takes me a little bit to find it. Like I get in the car and I can see it through the window tint. And I get out and I'm looking at it with a naked eye and I don't see it. And I do that at least twice. I'm like, okay, I'll get in the car and I look through the tint and I can see it. Then I get out and I'm looking, and then finally I catch it. And I'm watching it, and it looks even stranger once I actually am looking at it, not through the window tint. So I pull my phone out and I start recording this. And it looks to my eye, it looks oblong. And it's going from bright, brilliant, like reflecting sunlight, to black. And it's stationary, but it's odd. It's really odd. And I'm sitting there. I record about 6.5 minutes of video. And I'm trying to do this by the book, right? Panning out, getting broad shots so you can get a relative position, get an idea. And obviously, we're not triangulating this. There's no way to know how big or small it is.
Yeah.
I'm at least trying to get an orientation of where it is, these things. And after about 10 minutes of it sitting stationary, it starts to drift to the east. I'm videoing it to the north, and it starts moving to the east very slowly. And it has this weird, in the video, you see it not only going from brilliant to black, and the size appears to change, and it fades out and fades in. And I know that the typical, scriptard is going to say, oh, that's artifacts of the camera and it's trying to focus. Yeah, the camera was trying to focus occasionally, but what it was doing looked the same to the naked eye as it did to the camera. So it really was doing. And so it moves to the right and it fades out and I lose it. And look around, I can't find it. And so I turn the camera off. And I get back in the car and I tell my wife it faded out. And she goes, well, what about the jets? I'm like, jets? What jets? And she goes, the two jets. And I'm like, what? So I jump back out and there's 2 military jets flying over right there. And I was so focused on trying to keep that thing in my sights. I didn't even pay attention.
Yeah.
Right. And so I pull my camera and I catch the tail end of the 2 military jets flying off, leaving a contrail right over them. So, and in that entire time, one car drove by because we're in a pretty remote area. As we're driving off, there's a car going the opposite direction. It pulls over in about the same spot we did. And I'm looking at them in the rearview mirror and they get out of the car and look. I'm like, oh shit, it's back. We're like, okay. So after 15 minutes or so of this, we kept going. But once I had the opportunity to look at the video, and Russ has the video, and I sent him, I think, about a 3-minute clip of it. I'm sure he's going to put that on this video.
Send me everything you got, and I'll put some stuff in post. Yeah.
The object is pretty strange. It appears to be 2 spheres that appear to be rotating around each other, and I don't know why they go from brilliant or glinting to black.
Yeah.
But in some of the footage, like I said, they look like they get smaller and then they get bigger. And it's not the camera trying to focus on that. Objects look like that even to my eyes and to my wife's eyes.
Yeah.
Well, we would lose it and then it would come back and then,
Yeah. Just the video you sent me, which is all I've seen so far. It was clear that it was bright. And it didn't look like a single object, it does, but you can see 2 different parts of it at least at some points. And it also would get dark, and you can still see it, and then it would get bright, and it gets dark. So yeah, it is very strange. Yeah, and then the jets being there in the same vicinity or right over. Maybe it's a pure coincidence. I don't know. It could be connected to all this other stuff happening. It could. There's multiple objects being detected. They're getting shot down. So this is possibly another one, and it just wasn't being reported for whatever reason. This was in a remote area, and immediately what I did when I got in the car is I did a snapshot of my on Google Maps. I wanted to identify to get the coordinates. The angle of view, I wanted to say, okay, I was filming at this angle. And then I started looking, okay, are there any military bases or anything? Because the first thing I thought of, because we have where I live, we have surveillance balloons, like Homeland Security has balloons they send up and they're really high. And sometimes, if somebody doesn't know any better, it might look anomalous. And they're like,
oblong shaped, and they have like kind of a tail. So if that was turning, I could see that it would look. I mean,
yeah.
I'm not trying, by no means, I'm not calling myself an expert, but I've been around the block a few times, and I know how things can look deceiving, right?
Sure.
If they're turning or whatever, and they could change, your perspective changes. So I'm trying to be thorough when I'm assessing what I'm looking at. And so I take this screenshot, I look at, there's nothing. It's fields. There's no military bases. There's nothing that would lead me to believe that this was a tethered balloon or something along those lines, or some foreign government surveilling a base or something. There was no indications of there anything like that. The other thing for me, the way that sometimes I will, another piece of information that I think is relevant in a lot of cases is like the feeling, whether there was a change in your mindset in it, because legitimate sightings, like legitimate anomalous sightings, will often contain or include some weird effects like odd thoughts and those kind of things. None of that happened. So if I was going to make a judgment call, I would go on the drone side, some type of secret tech thing. But there are aspects of that make that questionable. Again, why would you send a drone out in the middle of nowhere where there was nothing that's seemingly of any value to be surveilling? And it was anomalous. The object, it was strange. Can't say. I mean, I have seen video footage of things like that. I've never seen anything like that myself.
Yeah. Yeah. So, okay. So you didn't have what you would think of as any kind of high strangeness effects.
No.
But that isn't, I mean, and I agree with you that a lot of times with sightings, there's high strangeness effects, but not always.
Yeah. No, not always.
But basically what you're saying is without high strangeness effects, it's much more likely to be a prosaic human technology object that's just being unidentified by the observer.
I'm just trying to remain objective. Like
sure.
there's nothing to lead me to believe this is an extraterrestrial craft, right? It was an anomalous sighting of an object that could not identify.
It could have been that you were traveling down a long and lonesome road and you saw a shiny demon.
Yes, exactly. Although I didn't get haunted by it. It didn't show up last night while I was in bed. So I guess I call
all
it
you needed to do was play the best song in the world.
Play the bed podcast in the world.
Yeah, and there were some suggestions. When I was very hesitant to comment on it, but I decided last night when I got to the hotel, I go, what the hell? I'll post it on the Discord. Everybody in there's a lot of really knowledgeable people, and I like getting other people's opinions about that. I sent it to Russ immediately.
Yep.
From the road, 5 minutes after it happened, he had a copy of the video. Right.
Yeah.
But because
you might have died.
His opinion.
You better do it quick.
Right. So I posted it, and I kind of gave a rundown of what happened, and there were comments like, could there have been a co-creation thing going on, and and this is something we'll discuss in greater detail at some point. But that is a thing, right? That the co-creation thing. There are incidents that would lend credibility to the idea that the observer plays a role in this, right?
Yeah.
But I don't think that necessarily applies in this instance, because first of all, my wife saw it first.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. You were not the
brought
first
it to my
observer.
attention. And if I was co-creating something because of my background, it would have been a big triangle with lights on the corners and all, it would have been or it would have been this demon with bat wings, something like that. Right? It wouldn't have been these spheres falling, this is not in my wheelhouse of what I generally consider to be a UFO,
Yeah.
But I am very much aware that this is not, by no means is this an unusual type of object.
Well, that could have been the co-creation, is that you were creating something that you wouldn't think.
Yeah, that you would
is
that would puzzle you. Yeah, exactly.
UFO.
That's the trickster aspect.
Yeah,
pulls
exactly.
out the thing
like, what
out
does he
of your
not
brain that
think
you
is-
least want to see.
and it makes it remain, like ambiguous in your mind. You're like, what was that? Right. That's what happens. I mean, it isn't.
Right, it's not
necessarily right. It's not necessarily high strangeness, but you didn't see what you would expect to see on either end of the idea of like this is normal or this is not. It was something
That's
ambiguous.
A good point. Very good point.
Right. It made you stand there for 10 minutes videoing it, wondering what the hell you were seeing, to the point where you didn't notice military jets flying nearby.
Yeah,
right. You were so focused on it. And
it's funny how I was trying to be as thorough as possible to get as much data out of this as possible, and then I missed.
Yeah, right. The other thing that's hilarious about this is, you're like, because we've talked many times off air about this, and you're like, well, the lights in the sky, it's useless data. Yeah. And then he sends me a lights in the sky video, and he's like, bro, check this out.
And there's mosquito,
so the mosquitoes flying around.
Were they mosquitoes?
I was ignore those things. Like, I'm not suggesting.
I was sure they were dragonflies.
The birds will fade in and out because they're at a sufficient distance that they're getting out of focus. So, and some people might watch it. Oh, there's another one. Like, no, I didn't see any of that. I saw the one thing. Right.
Next time you do this,
it did have that effect.
Next time you do this. You have an iPhone? Of course you do.
Sure do.
When you get it like to focus, you hold down on the screen and it will lock that focus, so it won't try to change focus anymore. Like once it's at its broadest, like most distant
it was
focus.
doing that. When it started struggling is when I would change. Like I'd panic because I wanted to get a wide shot so that you could see the horizon.
Yeah.
You could see the mountains in the background, so you had a relative position. That's the only reason that I kind of did that. I didn't, because I've seen this enough. And that was the other thing. I'm sitting there all this time and I'm like, okay, am I just going to sit here forever or whatever? Because I know everybody always comes, how come you never see them leave? Like they only video and then people will stop in the middle of the footage and just leave. Like that seems so unlikely. It immediately raises red flags that it's a hoax, right? So I was like, I'm going to stay here until it leaves.
Yeah. Yeah. Well done. Thanks for the lights in the sky video, Marty.
Just another one to throw in that junk file, right?
Right, and this is, but it's really good to have this because it's another, we have the video and people will be seeing it because I'll put it in post. But the other important part is your testimony, because you're an actual witness, right? So you're trying to record with your camera what you were seeing, but it's also important that you say like what the camera caught. May not be, it can be a little fuzzy. Sometimes the focus is going in and out, but it's basically what I saw with my eyes, right? Now that's important, and sometimes you get that with these videos. But how do people know? People can just dismiss the witness testimony, right? So this is another instance where
but I know this guy, folks.
Right? Yes, that's what I'm saying. Is
you
like
can trust him.
I had not been drinking. I don't drink and drive. That's very important. Yeah, all that data, that additional data is important. Because again, you have, those scriptards out there that, that was just this. There's like, no, you got to have all the information together to paint a better picture. And, like I said, I've seen the mistakes other people have made, that you see good footage, but there was nothing to give you a relative position toward. You can't compare it to something.
Yeah.
I recognize that there was no way for me to know how far it was, right? Because it was not a shape I could identify. This had been, that was one of the points I made to my wife. I go, if that was an airliner, we have a rough estimate of the size of an airliner. So with that information in our head, we can get an idea of how far away this thing might be. Being spheres, it could have been very close to us and small, or it could have been really far away and huge. There's no way to know.
No way to know. Yeah. And I will just point out that I've had a couple of sightings of things that were strange, and there wasn't really any high strangeness associated with them. Now, obviously, that may point to the idea that they were just craft that were unknown to me.
military or something.
Yeah. But the first one, when I was a teenager, I just don't even know if that could be military. It was basically, I thought it was a satellite, and I was tracking it across this, just like you would with a satellite. It's a little tiny point of light in the night sky. Looks like a star, but it's moving at a steady velocity. And then it just suddenly takes a 90-degree turn. That's anomalous, right? Now, it did make me stop and look up, and I'm like, what the hell is happening? But I didn't have any that I can recall any high strangeness other than how it kind of blew my mind when it took place, So.
Yeah, I generally don't talk about my own personal experiences because I try to remain objective. This one was relevant to the conversation, so that's why we decided to go ahead and talk about it. But, relative to your experience, that particular sighting, I had one very similar when I was about 12 years old. Same thing. The object, I caught it out of the corner of my eye, my cousin was with me. He observed it too. It was moving. When I saw it, I thought I had detected motion, and then it stopped, and it was a bright star-like object.
Yeah.
Kind of lost interest in it. It almost looked like a planet. And then a few minutes later, it started moving, but it was moving in dashes.
Oh.
And it moved maybe 3/4 of the way across the sky. And
you mean it would move real fast and stop? Is that what you mean?
Yes, and then right.
And then move and stop.
And then all of a sudden it made a 90-degree turn and started going off the other way.
Okay.
And we ran inside and called, our family to come out and see, and they caught the end of it. But yeah, I mean, that was there are other things that maybe at some point we'll talk about.
Yeah. So that's an interesting sighting. And that's even weirder than what I saw. What I saw looked exactly like a satellite, just a tiny dot of light in the night sky. I was in a very rural area, no lights. So all the stars were bright, and I was tracking it for a while. I was walking down the road, and it was just clicking along like a satellite, and it just all of a sudden made a 90-degree turn and didn't change its speed at all. It just completely made a 90-degree turn and kept moving at the same velocity it was. And then it stopped. And then three other ones came up to it, and they kind of rotated around each other and then sped off to the horizon.
Those type are a little more anomalous, a little harder to explain.
Right.
Mine, I even at the time.
But I could tell you that 90-degree turn, it floored me. I stopped walking.
Yeah,
there was this almost like an adrenaline rush, because I suddenly realized that isn't possible. So it was a very interesting experience, but I don't know if I would say it was high strangeness other than how weird it was. I didn't have any.
The 90-degree, same thing in my case. The 90-degree turn is what really made it more anomalous to me. And I recognized that, even at that time, maybe it's a satellite or something. But I didn't know at that time that, you can't retask a satellite like that. That's not to say there aren't other surveillance rumors. By no means am I saying that that's an alien craft. In other words, people need to understand, I don't make that leap.
Right.
Just because I don't know what it is doesn't automatically make it an alien craft.
Absolutely.
It just means it's anomalous, and it could be something more strange than something prosaic. It could be something more advanced that we're not aware of.
Sure. Yeah.
I'm trying to figure out why these aliens don't realize that if you just went diagonally, you'd get there faster. Instead, they go straight for a long time, then 90 degrees.
Yeah. So.
Why are they doing that?
Yeah. Well, as you know, I've got dinner reservations that I've got to get to.
Thanks for joining us, Marty. We really appreciate it. So
always great to have you.
Yeah. Go have fun.
It's fun, and I know we'll be doing this again soon.
Yes, we will. All right.
Yes, sir.
All right. Good night, everybody.
All right,
thanks, Marty.
Good night.
Bye-bye.
We'll be right back.
welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to the beginning of the show. So originally, this was just going to be listener communications. You know, we're going to do some news stories and maybe just talk about the book we just finished, Path of the Pole by Charles Hapgood. But all this stuff was going on with the, you know, these things.
UFOs.
Yeah, with UFOs. And so I asked Marty if he wanted to come on, and he did, but, you know, he had to go. So we went through that subject quick. So now we're starting the show, right?
How y'all doing?
And the Watcher is here with us. So yeah, what's up, Watcher? How you doing, buddy? You been seeing UFOs up there in Secret Space Station?
Not seen too many, no, but definitely glad to be here as always.
Yeah,
it's a good time. Marty's stuff was great.
Yep.
Can't ever get enough of that.
Yeah, Marty's always good to have on. So yeah, I'm glad we got to go through some of that stuff, and it's, you know, it probably will be dated by the time this podcast airs. So
yeah.
Who knows? Still, it was good to discuss it.
For sure.
Yeah. Anything else? What else is going on?
Marty's also fun to party with in Vegas.
He is. Yeah. He is fun to party with in Vegas.
What else is going on? I don't know.
I guess, did we already talk about this? We bottled 6,666 bottles of wine.
I think we did.
Did we mention that?
I don't remember. It's good. I'm very happy with it.
Yeah.
Got more bottling.
The new red blend.
Yeah. Got to prep these whites. I got a white and a rosé. I got to get bottled.
Is that going to be the same process? We're going to use the bottling truck?
No,
or are we
they're small
we're gonna
lots.
do it ourselves?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We'll use our equipment. But I got to get them stabilized and filtered. And we're installing 500 grapes on the terraces above the hillside vineyard. So
yeah, I saw you
that.
up there working on that today.
Yeah,
Yeah.
laying it out. Got to drill through the rock.
Yeah.
Went camping for my birthday.
We did.
That was fun.
Yep.
Went out to a ranch about an hour from here. Found a cool spot next to a creek. Nice flat area. Had a campfire, hung out.
Yeah,
A
we did
glass
some
of beers and
exploring, walked through some canyons. It's rough country, but it was a lot of fun. This is the property we had been on before. It's got lots of fantastic geology, tons of fossils, crystal growths, really cool. Arrowheads.
Great birthday.
Yeah, it was perfect.
And it was. I want to do it again. Need another
Yeah,
birthday.
so happy birthday.
Yeah, thanks.
Yeah.
Thanks. Getting old, folks.
Yep.
Well, enough about that. What do you got?
Let's do space weather news. From spaceweather.com. Geomagnetic storm watch. Minor G1 class geomagnetic storms are possible on February 14th and 15th, when one or more CMEs could deliver glancing blows to Earth's magnetic field. The storm clouds were hurled into space by an X1 flare and an erupting magnetic filament, both on February 11th. The CME most likely to strike Earth is a halo event. Arctic skywatchers could get a light show for Valentine's Day. All right, current conditions, solar wind speed. Wow, there's no numbers here. What's the deal? I don't have any current conditions.
The sun has stopped.
Yes.
Someone call Nick.
It says solar wind
finally
speed
stopped.
is speed kilometers per second, and the density is density protons per cubic centimeter. There's no numbers. I guess something's wrong with their system here. Sunspot number, though, is 197.
Dang.
That's a lot. Neutron count is minus 0.4%, which is, of course, below average. And the KP index right now is 0.67, which is quiet. 24-hour max was 2.00, which is still quiet. Weird how there's
It
no
hasn't-
numbers for current conditions.
It hasn't killed us yet.
Right.
It's trying.
It is trying.
Yeah. For free.
So other than that, we have a bunch of emails. You got a story,
You got
right?
Bitcoin?
Oh,
Still?
yeah. Crypto. Crypto.
Yeah, I got a story.
Yes, BTC is $21,749.92, and ETH is $1,502.12.
Seems to be holding.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you for that report. So, I've been interested in these hominin stories.
Yeah.
So I don't remember what the oldest weird story was, but maybe, somebody built a canoe a million years ago. I can't remember. But this is from phys.org. The title says, "We found 2.9 million year old stone tools used to butcher ancient hippos, but likely not by our ancestors." That's pretty old.
Yeah.
Stone tools.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Almost 3 million years old. On the shores of Lake Victoria in Kenya, a short valley extends southward towards the looming Mount Homa. From it have emerged some of the oldest known stone tools used to butcher large animals, as well as the oldest remains of one of our early cousins, Paranthropus, a genus we think coexisted with our direct ancestors.
Paranthropus? I don't know how to say
Coranthropus? Watcher? Coranthropus.
it. Oh,
Paranthropus. Or Paranthropus. I have
don't
no
know.
idea. Similar tool and fossil discoveries had been made before in different places and at different times, but to find these all together in one place, as old as they are, is truly extraordinary. In research published today in Science, we explain how findings at the Nyayanga site are changing the way experts think about carnivory among hominins, a group that includes modern humans, extinct humans, direct ancestors, and close cousins. It also raises doubt about who was really responsible for making the stone tools we'd previously attributed to Homo and closely related species. Nyayanga is a typical pastoral valley situated on the Homa Peninsula in western Kenya. This peninsula has long been known to produce various fossils. In 1996, a multidisciplinary team led by one of us, Thomas, began work on a 2 million year old site called Kenjera South. This work produced a wealth of fossil remains from large mammals, as well as stone tools associated with our genus Homo. Did you know about this? 2 million year old Homo sapien stone tools
no.
in Kenya? Okay, well.
Well, it doesn't say sapien, just the Homo genus, right? It's not.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
During a field season at Kenjera South, a local man named Peter Onyango, sorry, Peter, don't know how to pronounce your last name, buddy, who was working with the team, suggested we investigate some fossils and stone tools eroding out of a valley on the shores of Lake Victoria. The new site, named Nyayanga, after the nearby beach, was situated on a donkey track leading to the lake. The first stone tools and fossils we collected were eroding out of the gully walls. Beginning in 2015, a series of excavations eventually returned a trove of 330 artifacts and 1,776 animal bone fragments from a range of species characteristic of open savanna and open woodland environments. The bones included animals we are familiar with today, such as giraffes, antelopes, elephants, and hippos. But they also included extinct megafauna, such as, Eurynathohippus, an extinct horse ancestor, Pelorvis, the giant buffalo, and Meganterion, the saber-toothed cat. Of particular interest were the remains of 2 teeth from the extinct hominin Paranthropus, nicknamed the Nutcracker Man, as its large flat teeth are thought to have been used to process tough vegetable matter. These teeth, one intact and the other a fragment, were the first direct evidence of an extinct hominin on the peninsula. What made their recovery even more surprising were the tools found associated with them. Alongside Paranthropus's teeth were some stone tools belonging to a technology known as the Aldewan, characterized by three main forms: hammerstone, core, and flake. That's cool. Paranthropus. Paranthropus. Okay.
Yeah, it's still not helpful because
He has none of it's capitalized, so it's not giving me the.
He doesn't tell you which syllable the emphasis is on, right?
Which means that it doesn't have one. Paranthropus.
Right.
This is cool. Hammerstone, core, and flake. That's pretty cool. Aldewan tools had long been associated with our own genus, Homo, and were once considered a marker for the beginnings of human modernity. While we can't demonstrate Paranthropus actually made these tools, this species is so far the only suspect at the scene of the crime. So, what was a nut-cracking, plant-chomping hominin using these tools for? Well, it turns out in addition to processing plants, the evidence of which we could see on the tool's edges, these lithics were also used to make hippo tartare. Tartare? We found evidence of meat cutting on the edges, but the smoking gun was the cut and percussion marks found on several hippo individuals associated with these stone tools. Of course, this wasn't the first time cut marks had been found on megafauna. In fact, some of the earliest evidence of megafauna butchery was reported on by our team at Canberra South back in 2013. However, our comprehensive dating program at Nyayanga revealed the site's deposits to be about 2.9 million years old. This means they're probably the oldest stone tools found to have butchered hippos and processed plant material.
I wonder how they're dating it.
Not only that, but this is about 2 million years before the first evidence that people used fire. So they were just eating the meat raw. Right? This suggests raw
Baking it in the sun.
Oh, that's what it says. This suggests raw hippo was on the menu for hungry hominins. Sure. Adding to that, the tooth fossils are the oldest Paranthropus remains ever found. And the associated tools are the oldest known Aldewan tools. The second oldest were uncovered some 1,200 kilometers away in Ethiopia and dated to about 2.6 million years. A brave old world. There's no evidence Paranthropus was actually hunting megafauna, but it would have been competing with saber-toothed cats, hyenas, and crocodiles for access to carcasses at the very least. The Nyayanga deposits provide a glimpse into an ancestral world that's possibly radically different from any we had pictured.
Wait, so they think they were scavenging them? Is that what they're saying?
They just said that there's no evidence of hunting.
Okay.
In doing so, they've raised even more questions about hominin evolution. Who were these resourceful tool makers? How far back does carnivory go? And just how old and widespread is the innovative Aldewan toolkit? Despite more than 100 years of research on the Homa Peninsula, much remains unearthed. Much remains
to be unearthed.
It just says unearthed. That means dug up, right?
Much remains not dug up.
Yeah.
Yeah. Interesting. Again, I'm interested in how what their process is for dating it, because 2 million years is too far for carbon, so they must be using some other processes, probably several of them.
Yeah.
And yeah, I guess if you've got butchery marks on the bones, that's not necessarily hunting evidence. So that's what they're saying.
Right.
But what is evidence of hunting then? Projectile tools?
Yeah. I mean, yeah, you would think embedded projectile tools, like embedded in the bone.
Right. So you have to find a spear point embedded into a bone to have evidence they were hunting them.
but also trapping, right, is a form of hunting.
Yep.
So they've found places where people drove animals into some pit or whatever.
Yeah.
So that would be hunting. Yeah, I don't know. That's a good question. But, projectile points would be an indication.
Yeah.
Whether
So
it's at
so
level.
they said hammerstone cores and flakes. It's like, what's that about?
What was the toolkit? Oldowan toolkit. What did I say? Hammerstone core and flake. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, I mean, obviously they were the craftsmen, right? It wasn't like you find a sharp rock, or it wasn't you just break a rock and then use a sharp edge. Like they've got a tool.
They've
got a tool
to work
for
the
actually
stone.
working the stone, and
Yeah.
then they're finding the cores and bringing them and breaking them
And making
with the
flakes.
hammerstone and making
Yeah.
So it's a tool kit as opposed to just using a random broken rock for
Right.
something.
Okay.
Kit for manufacture, which is cool.
Eating giraffes.
Only the left front legs.
Neck strap.
Yeah, get some neck strap.
It's 6 feet long. All right. Well, let's tackle some emails.
Okay.
We have a whole bunch. And
Well, normally when we do a full communications episode, we try to get Laura in, but we kind of had a disaster right before this happened.
There was a catastrophe right before this happened. And also, I'll be going out of town at the end of this week, and I'll be gone until the middle of next week. So it's possible that next week's episode may be a little late, maybe not, but I'm just letting everybody know that, there's a possibility. Don't know yet. But yeah, I'll be out of town, so hopefully we can just record next week's episode right after I get back and then publish it. So,
Okay.
yeah. But yeah, the schedule has gotten a little weird recently in terms of when they get released. Like stuff got behind, the freeze screwed stuff up, and anyway. So I just want to let people know, like, if next week's episode is delayed a little bit, don't worry.
It's just because you're out of town.
Right.
Gotcha.
But I should be hopefully going to go get to go see Serpent Mount
Heck
and
yeah.
maybe some other stuff. So I'll be posting stuff in the Discord and, can definitely talk about it when I come back. Okay. So this is from Jeff, and we actually got this on the 1st of January. So he starts it out by saying Happy New Year. This is titled Episode 154. Greetings, Snake Brothers. Slowly but surely, I've been working my way through the back catalog of episodes while listening to the new ones as they come out. I'm finding that this isn't always a good idea, as I was working my way through episodes 133 through 138, which is your book report on Velikovsky's Earth in Upheaval,
That's interesting.
while at the same time listening to new episodes 261 through 266, which was your book report on Hapgood's Path of the Pole, as you published them. There were just enough similarities between the two that I had to stop listening to the new Hapgood episodes until I could get through the old Velikovsky episodes. I couldn't keep straight in my head who was saying what about what.
Yeah.
66% brain expansion at one time is too much. Finally found my way through. Both were awesome and fantastic work, just best if not smashed together at the same time. I recently finished listening to episode 154, where you went through some listener correspondence and then had a general discussion of physics, dimensions, time dilations, and the electromagnetic spectrum. I was inspired to share some things that I've been thinking about and reading over the past several years and never felt comfortable sharing out loud with anyone. I don't claim to have all the answers, or any of the answers for that matter, just some random thoughts and questions that I wanted to share. George Carlin used to refer to these kinds of random thoughts as brain droppings, and that's about as much value as these ideas carry. Anyway, I wanted to share them. Maybe you all can read them and find something interesting, or perhaps tear it all apart and expose me as a complete and utter moron, or ignore it all entirely. Either option is fine. Didn't set out to write a book, maybe just a chapter. Love the show. Keep up the awesome work. Don't let anyone BS you. Physics is about pyramids. Pyramids is about physics. These are intertwined and interrelated. Keep doing both. Jeff. In other words, he's saying to you, stick to the pyramids crowd, that physics is also about pyramids.
Yeah, that's right. Thanks, bro.
Right. So I should say that this has a bunch of postscripts where his brain droppings are, and it's a lot. So should I read some of them, or?
Let's give us a taste.
Okay.
Give us a taste.
Give you a taste.
Yeah.
Random brain droppings.
Okay.
He says, these are not my original ideas. 1, 3-dimensional space. The idea of 3 dimensions in space isn't truly accurate. There is only the dimension of space. The concept of 3 dimensions is a human construct based on Cartesian coordinates to assist in accurate spatial measurements or finding a location in space. Our 3-dimensional way of thinking is based on 3 axes that are normal or 90 degrees to each other. Why 90 degrees? I propose that because we are cubic beings, at least in our thinking, if not in reality. We have fronts and backs, left sides and right sides, tops and bottoms. The shape of our bodies define our way of thinking. Imagine if the residents of Alpha Centauri were 6-sided or dodecahedral beings. Their Cartesian coordinate system might have 6 axes at 60-degree angles to each other based on their body plan, and they might then define or perceive 6 dimensions in space. It's the same space as ours, just the method in which they describe a location in space would be different. Or, who's to say that the residents of Johnson's planet don't set their Cartesian axes at 37.26 degrees? Who knows? Ultimately, there is just the dimension of space and a relative position in space. They are not really multiple dimensions of space.
Okay.
All right.
Well, you might be right.
I think
It could be a semantics argument here.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. It's semantics. And yes, you could define 6 axes at 60-degree angles to each other, but you don't have to.
Yeah, the simplest way to do it is 3.
3, yeah.
So that's what I was
If you
thinking.
only define 2, you can't actually get an accurate position. That's the reason why it's 3-dimensional space.
Right.
You could call it 6-dimensional space, but
It's unnecessary.
Right, yeah.
Okay, that's what I was thinking.
That's okay.
But it is a construct.
It is, yeah.
I agree with that.
Right. I agree with that as well. But do you think that there's like a way to define space that isn't 3 dimensions, like less than 3 dimensions, or 3 axes or whatever? Like
less? I mean, not. I don't think so.
Yeah, I don't either.
Like, how can you
And really, it's 4. You have to define
time.
Technically, you have to define, 3 axes of location and also the time location. Really.
Yeah.
So.
But I don't know. I mean, I haven't sat down and put a whole lot of thought into this. I just, it works, and it seems to be the simplest way that it works for us to talk about space and communicate ideas and, like you said, location.
Yeah.
Nevertheless, you could say that I see what, like, the idea that a dimension is like space itself. Like, this is one dimension of existence or something like that. That is where I'm saying it's semantics.
Yes. Right. Like a parallel dimension.
Right.
Doesn't mean that you're adding an axis.
Yeah.
Or you have a different axis or whatever. You may be describing something that's, because, in popular literature, at least, a parallel dimension is very similar to ours.
Yeah, so it also has 3 axes
dimensions.
And,
yeah. 3 axes of location plus time. Yeah. Okay. Well, there's a bunch more here. They're all physics-based.
One more.
One more. Okay. All right. We'll just go with the second one, too. What is a dimension? The definition of a dimension is unclear. Is time a dimension? How about gravity? How about inertia, mass? If space is a dimension, what about Eric Dollard's concept of counter space? Bindle seems to be defining light, energy, ether, time, and matter as dimensions, but as best as I can tell, neither of these guys has provided a clear, unambiguous definition for the term dimension. Depending on how you define dimension affects what you define as a dimension. As rational thinking beings, we need to clearly define and agree on what the term dimension means. I don't have and haven't been able to find that clear and agreed upon definition.
Okay. Let's see what the internet thinks.
The Book of Knowledge?
A measure of spatial extent, especially width, height, or length. 2, extent or magnitude, scope. 3, aspect or element.
Yeah.
Seems right on.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's when it's discussed loosely as like some other place that's not our reality.
Right.
That's where it gets weird. And it's like I've never heard someone call
like you might ask in construction, like, what are the dimensions of the room?
Yeah.
Right. You're not asking how many parallel universes it has. You're asking what are the measurements along that wall and then along that wall and then how high, right?
It's like the architect's like, it feels great in there. It's lovely.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I don't know what to say to that. I mean, who needs to define these things? Because I think when physicists are talking about dimensions, they do know what each other are talking about, unless like maybe it's some when they're talking theoretical stuff, like in say multiverse type of thing, and they say alternative dimension, they probably also know loosely what they mean by that.
Yeah.
I don't know what did he say was a list of what people calling gravity a dimension? I've never heard that.
Yeah. Is time a dimension? I'd say
It's
is time a place or is it a system of measurement? Yeah,
it's a location. To me, it's a location.
It's a kind of location that needs to be defined. Especially if you're trying to, for example, rendezvous with some object in any given space. You need to know what time it's there. Yeah. So it's a dimension in that sense, is for sure a measurement.
But in this definition here, it says an aspect or an element. So an element of something could be a dimension of it. Mm-hmm. So I can see how people could use that.
Yeah.
Fairly loosely. All right.
Okay, the next one's about speed of light.
Oh, let's hear it.
Okay. The speed, quote unquote, speed of light. The speed of light isn't really a velocity of travel. It is a rate of propagation of waves generated by an electromagnetic force applied to a medium in space. This is the medium that many physicists claim doesn't exist. For the sake of common terminology, let's call it ether. This rate of propagation certainly isn't a universal constant and can change depending on the density of the medium in which it is propagating through, just like sound waves. Rate of propagation of light in the ether is essentially no different in behavior than waves in the ocean or sound waves in the atmosphere. A force is applied, and the medium that the force was applied to responds by transmitting all or part of that force in wave form. Waves are either longitudinal or transverse in form, or in some cases both. Force applied to water to make waves doesn't necessarily move the water nor the thing applying the force over a distance, whether it be wind movement or your hand splashing waves in a pool. The water will propagate the force to the shore, but the water itself only moves in a circle, wave crest to wave valley and back to the crest, then returns to its original position. This is a form of compressions and rarefactions. Per Ken Wheeler, waves aren't physical things, they are reactions of a field to force applied to that field. In reference to light, what we see is our electromagnetic force detectors, our eyes, sensing that force impinging on them, no different than our other sensors detecting other propagations of force. Your skin detects the water or wind pushing or pulling, or both, on you. Your ears detect force, compression, and rarefaction in the air and perceive it as sound.
Yeah. I wonder about the first part of that myself. Like, the idea that there's a medium, because it acts the same. It acts the same in the macro sense.
Well, I would just say at the very beginning here, the speed of light is
that's the nature,
velocity of the propagation of the waves.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's like, but it isn't a constant. It does change. It does vary a little bit depending on what's, circumstances, but it can be considered a constant in certain equations or in certain, when you're trying to figure out something else, and like the variation in the speed of light may be insignificant locally, right? Like, but I generally agree with that, except I have no expertise to agree with it.
Right.
I don't.
We don't know.
I do. I wonder, like, is there a medium in which these electromagnetic fields are?
There's no medium. Light brings it with it.
That's because this is, again, when physicists have done these experiments, like with the double slit, there's strangeness about it, which makes it look like it's sort of both. It propagates like a wave, and then sometimes it's like a dot. Like it's so it's weird, but I just think we don't fully. It has not really been figured out what's going on, but it seems so similar to any other type of wave propagation in a macro sense. Like that there should be some kind of elastic medium there that is.
Well, don't they call it like a quantum field? Like,
now there is a quantum field theory.
Yeah,
which
so it's
basically
like quantum field is basically ether, right?
But there's a bunch of them, right? There's like all. So then you've got the field has like little bits that make up the field, the boson.
Yeah.
It's like a unit of the field in some way.
Yeah. And maybe all fields have basic units. Like they all do.
Like air
water
has
certainly
molecules.
does. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, you would think it's elastic, so it has. It's like
the properties of
they want to equalize and stick together just so, but they can be shoved too close together, and they can be pulled a little too far apart than what they want to be.
Right.
That's what allows the wave to propagate.
Yeah, the properties of the field itself are based on the individual pieces of the field, whatever makes it up, whether it's air or water or the quantum field, boson particles, and their interactions with each other are what give you the properties of the field and its propagation state.
And I've just learned this from listening to Sean Carroll podcast, basically. Like, he's talking about...
We don't know what we're talking about.
I have no idea what I'm talking about. But he talks about quantum field theory, and basically it's like, so there's... Basically everything is fields now, right? This is one way to look at everything that we see in the universe, like, or physicists are looking at with their instruments, is that there's all these different fields, and various different aspects of physics are propagating waves through certain fields, and then there's the collapse of the fields, and there's all, there's all different that's the point of the theory, is to try to come up with something that that sort of makes sense out of the quantum and the macro, but still I think they're struggling to try to make that happen.
Yeah, for sure.
That's what the unified field theory is. That's what the quest is, right? They haven't unified it yet. There is no quantum theory of gravity. That's a big hurdle. And I'm not even sure what that even means, to say they need a quantum theory of gravity. It's like, they're looking for
all
the
we know is they need it.
Yeah, they need it.
And they don't have it.
And they're looking for little tiny bits of gravity. Try to figure out what their properties are.
Is this force being propagated through some kind of field, right?
Is that what the graviton or whatever?
Yeah, gravitons. But I mean, the idea of a graviton's been around a long time.
Yeah.
No one's ever shown that they exist.
Right.
in an experiment of any kind anyway. Like you mathematically you can look at them, but yeah.
We don't know.
No one knows. Maybe
great.
somebody does, but if they do know, they're not saying it. Yeah. Let's take a break.
Oh, okay. Wow. That was quick.
Yeah.
All right. We'll be right back, folks. And we're back, ladies and gentlemen, brothers of the Serpent Podcast. I can't say it as fast as Russ, folks. It just always comes out all messed up. But it is, yeah, brothers of the Serpent. But it is the fastest 2 hours in podcasting, sometimes 3. Yeah, so continuing on with the emails here.
Well, we got a couple one-up boxes.
Oh. See?
So we did.
I don't even know what's going on my own show.
So Troy, who is in the Discord, has him and Laura have been working on making stickers because we do these tours and we never have stuff to give away.
I know.
So he's made a bunch of different kinds of stickers.
Yeah.
If you're watching the video, I'm showing one. This is the circle one. He's made a bunch of these and some smaller ones. Some oval stickers. Yeah. And Comet. This is stickers.
Yeah, that's awesome.
I mean, this is really cool.
Aren't there pyramid ones too?
There are pyramid ones, and there's a bunch of different kinds, yeah, of different sizes.
Sweet.
So we really appreciate it, buddy. Thank you so much.
Thank you, buddy.
Yeah, we got a box full of stickers now that we can bring.
Also got a box full of wine from Brad.
Yeah.
Right? Not Brad Young, but another Brad.
Yes, different Brad.
And he made a bunch of kit wine. And yeah, it's actually been aged quite a while now. So I think it was like he stopped making it in 2018 or something. Anyways, thanks, buddy.
So
I'll try it out.
Yeah.
Yep. I'm gonna bust them open. He said if they're bad, dump them and run. So we'll give it a shot, dude. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you guys.
Okay, now what?
Emails.
Where was I? Okay. This is from Terry.
Yeah.
Says, hello, Snake Bros. I've finally found a home with those that share my curiosity about prehistory and paleogeology, especially lost civilizations. I've researched and pored over the many anomalies in millennia-old myths, stories, legends, and folklore, as well as the many holes in the standard model of our history. I found you guys through Cosmographia, which I discovered from a web search of Randall Carlson, who I have followed for years. I was intrigued by your curiosity and skepticism of the scriptarts. Scriptarts.
Scriptarts, I think is what it is.
Scriptarts. And especially fell in love with your sarcasm and humor, which mirror mine. No, it doesn't.
What?
I'm just kidding, dude. Just being sarcastic.
Okay.
I couldn't resist checking out your podcast and was hooked on the very first one, or rather your second one. 0 mistakes. I have been binging along, trying to catch up, and it's a daunting task, but so worth it. I'm currently on episode 133, part 1. She's listening to the same episode of the other guy was.
Yeah.
Part 1 of The World in Upheaval. However, my desire to join in on the current discussions, I devised a new plan. I listened to the most recent podcast of listener comments and will continue to follow along as new episodes are released, and we'll catch up on the back catalog in between. It was nice to finally get to see Laura and put a face, and a pretty one at that, to the lovely voice that announces every new Jewel released. Thank you, Sarah.
Well, just saying that Jeff said that was hard with World in Upheaval, Earth in Upheaval, and Path of the Pole.
Yeah. Now my backstory. I was raised on a small rural farm in eastern Ontario and marveled at the rolling hills of gravel interspersed with hills of sand, and underlaid in a large part of the area a hard-packed bluish clay. I came to realize, it was mostly glacier-created terrain that inspired my natural curiosity. I have always had an insatiable love of math and science, eventually also engineering. Having grown up around the animals on the farm and the wild animals around, I early on understood how hard it must have been to domesticate the food animals, not to mention breed, to create so many different breeds of each. I reached my teens and came to the realization that developing domestic crops would have been even more challenging. How did my butt flap ancestors accomplish this while trying to find food, protect themselves from predators? Oh, and in their spare time, build immense pants and boots. No, immense megaliths as a hobby. I am currently reading Stairway to Heaven by Sitchin after finishing The 12th Planet. I have read numerous books on the topic of possible prehistory and Atlantis, not the least of being Fingerprints of the Gods and Magicians of the Gods, and The Path of the Poles. Have you read Ragnarok, The Age of Fire and Gravel by Ignatius Donnelly, in which he discusses a comet impact in the distant past?
Nope.
I have not. I thoroughly enjoy your many book reviews and the awesome guests you have on. I plan on going back and commenting on my favorites, and I've joined the Discord chat and waiting on approval for the Facebook group. Anyway, I apologize for rambling on, but you snakes have stirred up my latest snakiness and have my mind churning with so many thoughts I want to share. But I will sign off for now, and you'll hear from me in the future. Thank you for leading the war against the scriptarts. 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 I like that. That's great. And their propaganda-like standard model. You have a new loyal snake here in Canada, where the ice is currently fighting back and trying to take over. Haha. I'm heading over to Patreon to send some support, a small token of my appreciation.
Oh, thank you.
Snakes, says Terry. Thank you so much, Terry.
Thank you.
Really appreciate that, man. Scriptarts.
Scriptarts.
I'm using that from now on.
You're going to use it from now? Okay. I've seen quite a few people spell it that way or close to that.
Good. Yeah. That's good.
Script.
They're following the script.
Script tarts.
And they're tarts.
All right. So we've got Roddy the Mammal.
Oh.
It's called More Thoughts.
Hello there.
More Thoughts on Hapgood.
Okay.
Dear Ophidian siblings, as I sit here by the fire, pointed quill grasped in my furry, dexterous, opposable thumbed paw, I am wont to let my mind wander along silken lines of rumination, conjecture, and possible knots of insight as I listen to your waxings and wanings of Hapgood's speculative conjectures regarding the Earth's crustal mutability. Therefore, being endothermically inclined to communicative curiosity, what follows is but a brief accounting of some of the most interesting, illuminating, and fantastical questing ideations brought forth from said listenings. You have been forewarned. 1. Rather than think of the Earth as an orange with a loose skin, I think a more apt paradigm would be to compare the Earth to a chocolate-covered cherry. A solid cherry core, surrounded by sweet liquid and covered by a shell of hard chocolate. If that is not a more accurate, is that not a more accurate and tasty model for Hapgood's theoretical Earth? 2. Why do planets exist? If the sun's gravitational force is strong enough to hold Jovian planets in its celestial thrall, would not this gravitational force have an even greater effect on the smaller, inner planets? An effect strong enough to prevent the creation of said planets through localized gravitational forces. In fact, given the enormity of the sun's gravitational pull, shouldn't our solar system be nothing more than an immense accretion disk, similar to the rings of Saturn, but on a far grander scale? So I want to stop there. Those are those are good questions. And in some ways, they are about the model of the solar system, right? And its creation. How did it form? I think those are good questions. But
damn it.
What?
I have a news story that I thought was super boring, and now I think I need to pull it up.
See? Are you saying that Roddy the Mammal is boring? Is that what you're saying?
No, I think he makes. No, Roddy, you made this subject interesting.
But I would say that
I saved the news story because I think it's interesting. But then when I like start reading it before the show, I'm like, okay, this is too boring to put it on the show.
Oh,
That's why they're boring. You know what I'm saying?
yeah, I understand that you do that.
He understands that I do that. It doesn't make sense, though.
But I'm not sure if he's asking this in the beginning about if this force is strong enough to hold Jovian planets in its celestial thrall. Would not this gravitational force have an even greater effect on the small? It does. It is. There is a... I mean, the general idea is that, gravity is inverse square. So, yes, the closer to the sun you are, the stronger the pull. But there's also the velocity of the planets and everything that are involved.
Right.
So the fact that it's holding Jupiter doesn't change the way it's going to hold the inner planets. They just move quicker in their orbit around it. And that is supposed to be a function of what would have been the original accretion disk. The question is how did they coalesce into planets in the first place?
Okay, well, should I do this?
Yeah,
real quick?
go ahead.
Okay, so scientists unveil a unified theory for rocky planet formation.
Okay.
Roddy. A new theory for how rocky planets form could explain the origin of so-called super-Earths, a class of exoplanets a few times more massive than Earth that are the most abundant type of planet in the galaxy. Further, it could explain why super-Earths within a single planetary system often wind up looking strangely similar in size, as though each system were only capable of producing a single kind of planet. As our observations of exoplanets have grown over the past decade, it has become clear that the standard theory of planet formation needs to be revised, starting with the fundamentals. We need a theory that can simultaneously explain the formation of the terrestrial planets in our solar system, as well as the origins of self-similar systems of super-Earths, many of which appear rocky in composition, says Caltech professor of a lot of things. Planetary systems begin their life cycles as large spinning disks of gas and dust that consolidate over the... So let us tell you of our bad theory.
Yeah.
Here we go. They begin their life cycles as large spinning disks of gas and dust that consolidate over the course of a few million years or so. Most of the gas accretes into the star at the center of the system, while solid material slowly coalesces into asteroids, comets, planets, and moons. In our solar system, there are two distinct types of planets, the smaller rocky inner planets the closest to the sun, and the outer larger water and hydrogen-rich gas giants that are farther from the sun. In an earlier study published in Nature Astronomy, this dichotomy led people and their colleagues to suggest that planet formation in our solar system occurred in two distinct rings in the protoplanetary disk. An inner one where the small rocky planets formed, and an outer one where the more massive icy planets, two of which, Jupiter and Saturn, later grew into gas giants. So you are right.
Yeah.
That they did start out as rings, so they say. So they claim. Super-Earths, as the name suggests, are more massive than Earth. Some even have hydrogen atmospheres, which makes them appear almost gas giant-like. Moreover, they are often found orbiting close to their stars, suggesting that they migrated to their current location from more distant orbits. So he's right again, in a way. That they didn't just start out close. They would have, they didn't start out close to the sun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. As they gain mass and they move inwards because now they're not moving quickly enough.
Yeah. A few years ago, we built a model where super-Earths formed in the icy part of the protoplanetary disk and migrated all the way into the inner edge of the disk near the star. The model could explain the masses of orbits of super-Earths, but predicted that all are water-rich. Ooh, that's interesting. Recent observations, however, have demonstrated that most super-Earths are rocky, like the Earth, even if surrounded by a hydrogen atmosphere. That was the death sentence for our old model. Okay, so let me read that again. Recent observations, however, have demonstrated that most super-Earths are rocky, like the Earth, even if surrounded by a hydrogen atmosphere. And that was the death sentence for the old model. Over the past 5 years, the story has gotten even weirder as scientists, including a team led by a bunch of other people, from a place have studied these exoplanets and made an unusual discovery. While there exists a wide variety of types of super-Earths, all of the super-Earths within a single planetary system tend to be similar in terms of orbital spacing, size, mass, and other key features, which kind of suggests that something anomalous happened here.
Yes. Yeah.
Lauren, someone obviously studying this, discovered that within a single planetary system, super-Earths are like peas in a pod. You basically have a planet factory that only knows how to make planets of one mass, and it just squirts them out one after the other. So what single process could have given rise to the rocky planets in our solar system, but also to uniform systems of rocky super-Earths? The answer turns out to be related to something we figured out in 2020, but didn't realize applied to planetary formation more broadly. Let's see. So there's a new theory proposed for the formation of Jupiter's 4 largest moons, Io, Europa, Ganymede, and Callisto. In essence, they demonstrated that for a specific size range of dust grains, the force dragging the grains towards Jupiter and the force or entrainment carrying those grains in an outward flow of gas cancel each other perfectly. That balance in forces created a ring of material that constituted the solid building blocks for the subsequent formation of the moons. Further, the theory suggests that bodies would grow in the ring until they become large enough to exit the ring due to gas-driven migration. After that, they stop growing, which explains why the process produces bodies of similar sizes.
Oh, okay.
In their new paper...
So there's a threshold of mass that's based on the grain size and the gas flow in the ring. And once that threshold is reached, it migrates out of the ring and stops growing. And so you basically, you have a system that should generate stuff of
relatively the same mass.
Yeah.
So in
Which
there,
again implies that there's something weird happening here.
Yeah. In their new paper, I'll try to pronounce these names, Batagen and Morbidelli, they suggest that the mechanism for forming planets around stars is largely the same. In the planetary case, the large-scale concentration of solid rocky material occurs at a narrow band in the disk called the silicate sublimation line, a region where silicate vapors condense to form solid rocky pebbles. If you're a dust grain, you feel considerable headwind in the disk because the gas is orbiting a bit more slowly and you spiral towards the star. But you're in vapor form. If you're in vapor form, you simply spiral outward, together with the gas in the expanding disk. So that place where you turn from vapor into solids is where material accumulates. It's pretty cool. The new theory identifies this band as the likely site for a planet factory that over time can produce several similarly sized rocky planets. Moreover, as planets grow sufficiently massive, their interactions with the disk will tend to draw these worlds inward, closer to the star. Batagen and Morbidelli's theory is backed up by extensive computer modeling, but began with a simple question. We looked at the existing model of planet formation, knowing that it does not reproduce what we see, and asked, what assertion are we taking for granted? The trick is to look at something that everybody takes to be true, but for no good reason. In this case, the assumption was that the solid material is dispersed throughout the protoplanetary disks. By jettisoning that assumption and instead supposing that the first solid bodies form in rings, the new theory can explain different types of planetary systems with a unified framework. If the rocky ring contains a lot of mass, planets grow until they migrate away from the ring, resulting in a system of similar super-Earths. If the ring contains little mass, it produces a system that looks much more like our solar system's terrestrial planets. Okay. All right. I am an observer and an instrument builder, but I pay extremely close attention to the literature, Howard says. I don't know who Howard is, folks. Sorry. We get a regular dribble of little but still important contributions. But every 5 years or so, someone comes out with something that creates a seismic shift in the field. This is one of those papers.
Well, that's cool. I like that.
Okay, Roddy.
Question answered. Next question. 3. Why are planets round? Given that planets have coalesced into spheroid accretions through localized gravitational forces.
They're flat, Roddy.
they're round disks. Would these accretions of planetary matter still not be affected by the sun's gravitational pull? Would not a stellar tug of war ensue to pull matter away from the localized planetary centers, particularly at the equator, causing the Earth to have a more oblong or cylindrical shape as the spinning of the Earth creates great centrifugal forces at said equator and would, upon rotation toward the sun, give extra energy to the sun's gravitational pull and cause this equatorial material to be ejected from the Earth's surface? I mean, some of that sounds like balance of forces to me. That there's a balance, and that's why that doesn't happen.
So because you would consider the orbit of the dust particles and stuff around the sun it's their inertia that's keeping them from falling towards it.
Right.
So they're falling at the same rate as their traveling, like at the same rate as their forward speed.
Yes.
So that they never actually get any closer.
They're flying in the style of Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy.
Yeah, exactly.
The way to fly is to fall and
keep missing the ground.
The ground, yeah. That's right. Okay, 4. Given that the Earth spins, what effects would centrifugal force have on the foundational layering of the Earth's crust in regards to the distribution of light to heavy materials and sediments? Would heavier rocks be propelled to the outermost layers of the crust and lighter matter remain closer to the spinning core? Further, is it possible this centrifugal force allows for the creation of a void between the inner core and the outer crust? 5. There's no number 6. 7. It appears that, due to the stubborn, close-minded status quo mindset commonly found in what passes for learned academia, the only way to truly understand what is going on with the Earth is to cross-section the planet so that we may peer within the lower layers and core. I can see only 2 major flaws with this line of inquiry. A, finding a large enough saw to accomplish the task, and B, dropping property values along the cut line. Granted, the views would be spectacular, but it would really affect one's commute. 8, is the universe truly expanding or just slowly pulsing like some galactic heartbeat, and we, in our brief time of existence, are only observing the outward rhythmic beat of the universe's heart?
That's cool.
I really like that. Yeah, I read this whole thing just to get to 8. No, I'm joking.
I want to know what 6 was before he deleted it. 5 and 6 both got deleted.
Well, he says, "Thank you in advance. Yours, Roddy the Mammal. P.S. Truth be told, there was a number 6. But due to irreconcilable differences, it was thought best that we should part ways before it became ugly. I believe 6 has now taken up with NASA and causing its usual havoc and mayhem over there."
And 5 also was probably deleted.
5 is just to tell you that there's no number 6.
But he had to have written 5 first.
Well, let's back up a bit here about the spin and the effects of centrifugal force. Again, I don't know, but I would immediately say, well, the spin doesn't generate enough centrifugal force to counter the Earth's gravity to that extent.
Whatever the gravitational force is.
Right. Yeah. The fact that we are pulled to the surface means that the heavier stuff is not going to go out from the interior. I don't know. Right? The effect of gravity is stronger than the centrifugal force pushing outwards, basically.
So centrifugal force is based on, like, in other words, a heavier object will have a greater force being pushed out due to centrifugal force.
Yeah.
than a light one. Is that correct?
Yeah.
But a light object and a heavy object will fall at the same rate due to gravity. Like they don't, a lighter object doesn't fall slower.
It doesn't mean that the heavier and light object necessarily would move faster, just that the heavier object will have greater inertia due to the centrifugal force, right? It's the same thing.
Okay,
like
so it is
the heavy and light object fall the same, but the heavier object definitely has
more inertia.
Yeah.
And so I'm just thinking of a merry-go-round, right? Like you put a heavy object and a light object on the merry-go-round and you start spinning it.
They'll both fly to the outside, probably at the
same rate.
Yeah, probably. Given that they don't have to overcome friction or anything else. I don't know.
See,
I'm not totally sure.
That's the key. That's what I was saying. It's like it seems like they should both fly out at the same rate.
Right, but if you're hit by the light object, if you're standing outside of the merry-go-round, you're hit by the light object, you know, it's not going to knock you. Yeah, but the heavy object knocks you over. Yeah, exactly. Right, exactly. But I'm just saying that here, like in general on Earth, there is a centrifugal or centripetal, however you want to say it, force acting on everything. But it isn't enough to overcome gravity, obviously, or we wouldn't have an atmosphere and, you know.
I'm just saying that if it's true that the light and heavy objects would both be pulled at the same rate due to centrifugal force, then there's no reason to think that heavier objects should come to the surface due to centrifugal force and the light ones be closer to the core.
Right.
That's all I'm saying.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's like a centrifuge works this way, right? If you're spinning stuff, the heavier stuff ends up on the outside of the interior of the cylinder that's spinning for the centrifuge, right? It uses this principle.
Yeah, but
it will sort it.
Yeah, that's sorting.
Yeah.
Just like gravity would sort the heavier
right. It's
objects.
just sorting
down
to the right.
Yeah.
I'm just saying that in this case, we have a centrifuge, which is overcome by the amount of mass involved in the entire system, such that the gravity of the centrifuge itself is much stronger than the centrifugal force being generated by the spin. Right? I don't know what I'm talking about, folks.
Well, if in a centrifuge, if there were no walls, nothing would be size sorted.
Right.
They would all fly out at the same rate.
Right.
But because there are walls preventing anything from actually leaving, then things are size sorted as gravity size sorts things on the planet. That's
right.
what I'm saying.
Right.
All right, we figured it out, I think. Show over.
So if you put a wall around the whole planet,
it's the ice wall.
it just yes, then it is flat Earth. That's basically what you can say.
It's flat. You're right.
Thanks, Roddy.
Appreciate it as always.
Yeah. Are we done?
Yeah.
We probably are, yeah. Okay. We read 3 emails. Fantastic.
I mean, this is, if when we're hanging out, somebody comes up with like I have an idea and it's 7 points. You're talking about point 1 for at least a couple of hours.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
So we're really rushing these.
Well, we'll have to catch up later. We've got plenty more emails.
Yeah.
I love the listener communications episode. Maybe we can get Laura in here to do the rest of them. Yeah, so maybe we can do that when I get back. All right?
Yeah.
So you guys want to get a hold of us? Maybe have your email read on the show? brothersoftheserpent@gmail.com.
Do you want to get trashed? Send us an email.
Be prepared to get made fun of. Maybe. Maybe not. It's all in good fun. We love hearing from you guys. I do read all the emails. We can't read them all on the show. But, if you write in, it may get read on the show and discussed. If you don't want it to be read on the show, make sure you say that in the beginning.
Discussed as in discussion, not read on the show in disgust.
In disgust. Listen to this. Ugh. Yeah. If you're writing an email to us and you don't want to be read on the show, make sure you say that at the beginning of the email.
Yeah.
You know, because sometimes I'll read the first part and I'm like, okay, this is actually good. We'll read it on the show. And then I get to the very end and it says, please don't read this on the show. Too late. Too late.
That's right.
Yeah. brothersoftheserpent.com for everything else related to the podcast. That is the website. And thank you guys for all the support. Everyone on the Patreon.
Thanks,
everyone
Watcher.
Who supports us through the PayPal. Thanks to the
Hi,
Watcher.
one.
Yeah. And thanks to all of you guys. We love you.
Oh.
What? Oh, you got to check for...
Check it. I always forget to do this. Let me make sure. I don't think we have any producers today.
Okay.
Whoops. Wrong app. I can cut this out. No, I can't cut it out because that makes Russ's job harder. Yeah, we've got. We have a couple of. They're not producers, but we do have notes. I got to read these notes.
Okay,
so
yeah,
we got one from Steve. And he says, bounty paid for pit question answered.
All right. Bounty paid.
He paid us a bounty. You go into the snake pit with a question, offer a bounty. Someone answers your question, we get paid.
It's amazing.
It's fantastic
the best
scheme.
system ever.
Another one from Colin. He says, what's up, hermanos? Drinking here. I was gonna buy a shirt, but then I remember that shirts are for work. I don't wear shirts when I'm not at work, and my work won't let me wear one of your shirts. So here's the thanks for all the great content and music. $33.
Thank you.
Thank you, Colin. Dude.
Shirts are for work.
And they won't
let me wear your shirt.
Genius. I love this note.
That's a great note.
If you donate to the PayPal, please write me a note.
If you write a note, we'll read it on the show. Yeah. Thank you, guys.
Love you.
Always have.
Always will.
Good night, Adamu.
Get back to work.